the best analogy I can give for you, Sam, and you could probably relate to this. It's kind of like you get that stretch play from a running back. That tackle doesn't quite get the edge, and you got to cut it back a lot sooner than you thought you were going to have to. It's just one of those things with the diabetes. I looked at it as if it was my ball, and I just took it and ran with it.
Welcome to the Game Plan T1D Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Benger. This podcast is focused on disproving the idea that type 1 diabetes is a roadblock by showcasing success stories from athletes and performers with T1D. For more information on this topic, please visit our website, www.gameplant1d.com, or follow us on social media at GamePlanT1D. This episode of the Game Plan T1D Podcast features T1D All-Star Brandon Denson. Brandon grew up playing many sports before settling on football. Brandon went on to play at Michigan State, where his standout career propelled him to the professional level. Brandon had a short stint with the Carolina Panthers before moving on to the CFL. In addition to football, Brandon was a competitor on the hit TV show American Ninja Warrior. Outside of athletics, Brandon currently works as an outreach manager for the New England chapter of JDRF, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Listen in at the end of the episode as Brandon discusses JDRF's mission and opportunities to get involved. During this podcast, Brandon and I discuss football, utilizing support networks, engaging the younger T1D community, and bouncing back from adversity. For such a successful athlete, I was most impressed by Brandon's positivity and how humble he was. Please enjoy my conversation with Brandon Denson. Welcome to the Game Plan T1D Podcast. This is your host, Sam Benger. We're sitting down for our first ever episode with Brandon Denson. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I appreciate it.
Before we get into the question of who is Brandon Denson, we want to ask you, if you could imagine you had a 1 million square foot billboard that all diabetics and their families could see, what would your message be to that community and why?
That's a pretty tough question.
That's why we're here. We're trying to answer the tough questions.
I probably honestly would say, or the billboard would say, who's going to stop me? And I say that because it can be relatable to T1D, type 1 diabetes, or it can be relatable to anything that you're going through or in life. But I think it hits home with me because, and everybody living with T1D, because we have these barriers that sometimes get in our way. And it's just another saying that I think just makes perfect sense is who's going to stop me.
So it sounds like for you, that's almost like a personal credo that you kind of live by. Let's talk a little bit about you growing up. You grew up in Michigan, correct?
Correct.
When was it that you kind of started to develop this passion for athletics, and when was it that you kind of adopted that mindset of, nothing's going to get in my way? Because, we'll talk about your track record later on, but you've got some serious accomplishments on the athletic front. How did those things sort of come to pass? When did you start to realize these passions?
I think sports is just it's very universal. I think growing up, seeing my father play softball and always being around like his buddies and at the games and playing catch with him and his friends and my older brother, who's 5 years older than me, just kind of being around, I would say essentially competition. So being younger, I always had to kind of prove myself to either kind of fit in or gain the respect, like, oh man, this kid can really play, So I really got involved with organized sports with baseball first. That was kind of like my true love. A lot of people don't know that, but baseball just came very natural to me, and I ended up playing basketball, football, and also ran track. But for some reason, I just love football. Early on, I think watching Barry Sanders, it took football to a whole nother level because the things that he was able to do was just so amazing. That was like one of my favorite players growing up, to watch him, living close to Detroit and having the opportunity to actually go see him play in person, with my father and with my brother and my family. I think was just it was just so amazing. So I really think from the first time me seeing him play like live at the Silverdome, the Pontiac Silverdome, which is no longer up, I think that really just that gave me that extra drive. Like I wanted to be like Barry.
Wanted to be like Barry. That's awesome. I totally get that. I was a running back myself, and Barry did some crazy things that I unfortunately wasn't able to see live. But no, he is an absolute stud. But tell me, so you're a defensive guy.
Yes.
So tell me, you couldn't necessarily model your game after Barry. Was there a guy on the defensive side of the ball that you kind of tried to aspire to be like?
Well, I didn't make the transition to playing defense officially until my junior year of college. So that was my first time playing defense. So up until that point, you know, I was always on the offensive side of the ball. But when I started playing defense, some of the people that I looked at were Ray Lewis, obviously from playing linebacker. He was pretty much one of the main people that I kind of tried to look at, just because his role on the field, his intensity, the way he took every play so serious. Like he never took a play off. And I think that was throughout the whole course of his career. That's what I got from him. Anytime you see him play, even when I play offense, you still knew who Ray Lewis was, because he was just a smash mouth football player, and he always brought this high energy and high intensity. And I think whatever side of the ball you are, even if you're a coach, I mean, he'll get you amped up. And if he doesn't, then you don't need to be playing football.
Absolutely. No, it's funny. I actually there was a certain Ray Lewis video with like Eric Thomas talking over it. I think it's called like Beast or something. You guys can try to find it on YouTube, but I would listen to that before every game, and it would get me so jacked up. I think there was one play where he legitimately tore his tricep off of his arm bone.
Yes.
And, you know, he's telling his teammates, he's like, I heard a pop. And they're like, you're good, Ray. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm good. And the trainer's like, no, you are not good. You're like, you just ripped your muscle in half. And he's like, no, I got to get back in there and play with my guys. So he is an absolute beast. But, no, it's interesting. I did not know that you transitioned to defense during college. Because, I mean, you know, being an offensive guy, pretty much my whole career, I played two ways in high school. But, you know, at the college level, trying to run down on even kickoff and cover guys is pretty challenging. So tell me a little bit about your experience on the offensive side and what that transition looked like.
So I actually had the opportunity to walk on at Michigan State University in 2005. I was a preferred walk-on, and I played wide receiver my true freshman year under the coach named John L. Smith. After that, after he was let go, Mark D'Antonio, the head coach now, came in, and I made a transition to running back. And when I made the transition to running back, we were stacked. We had, so much talent. Javon Ringer, J.U. Coltrick, A.J. Jimerson, David Spears, Andre Buford, Ashton Leggett, Andre Anderson. These are all scholarship guys. And, you know, that, I mean, let's be honest, collegiate sports it's a competition. You know, the best 11 on the field, and you know, I not that I didn't have hope or faith or believe in myself to play the position. I just know I wanted to get on the field quicker, and I was willing to do anything that it took to get on the field, other than just running down on kickoff and being on kick return and punt return and punt. You know, so I wanted to add another role to my position by actually playing a position on the field. So Mark D'Antonio asked me one day at practice, he said, hey, come here, Denson. He said, what you think about playing defense? I said, Coach, I just want to play other than special teams. He told me to come out on Thursday in a white jersey. Offense was in green. We were in white. He said, I'm going to line you up at safety. And I remember like it was yesterday, he was coaching me up, and then he threw me in there, and I got a pick. My first time getting in there at safety, and I did exactly what he told me to do. He said, you have to stay deep, and I seen this dig, and I bit on it, and I probably shouldn't have, but I picked it, you know what I mean? So it was like, it was kind of cool to see, like, I got coached up that fast, and, you know, I used my athletic ability, and then also what my coaches were telling me, and, you know, I was able to make a play. I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you what happened after that. I ended up, it was a pick six, but I didn't tuck the ball. I thought I was Deion Sanders, and let's just say I got kicked out of practice, but it was the end of practice, so it was okay. But yeah, my coach was pretty upset because I played running back, and we, at Michigan State, ball security is everything. Defense, we get the ball. Offense, we keep the ball. So it was cool. It was all fun and jokes, and he gave me a hug after practice, and just kind of gave me his 2 cents on what he thought about me running in the end zone like I was Dion.
Yeah, I think we've all had those, as football players, situations where you get the ball and it's one of those situations where you didn't think you were going to get the ball and you're just like, oh my God. Start doing things that you don't usually do. But so you talked a little bit about the competition within the team, fighting for a role, and anyone who's played a sport understands that there's competition against other teams, but then there's also competition within the team to kind of establish yourself. At the same time that you're fighting that battle, there's a diagnosis that happens. So walk me through, what that process was like and how you were able to balance that with what at the D1 level is essentially a full-time job, being a football player at Michigan State.
Correct. So for me, I was diagnosed when I was 17 years old, and I was going into my senior year of high school. And as any senior that doesn't have everything lined up as far as what university they're going to, or whatever they're going to do after they graduate, I was kind of the type 1 diabetes, being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes kind of added, more onto my plate. I was coming off of a knee surgery. I was trying to get ready for my senior year because I knew it was going to be a big year for me. And, I had to go out there and perform. So I had to be mentally and physically ready. I just remember telling my mother that I was urinating a lot. And, kind of from there, that's when everything really started. And she told me if it continued to let her know the next day, and I did. After practice, I think I used the bathroom like 15 times within 20 minutes, and it was kind of crazy. So I ended up calling her. She told me to drive home. I drove home. She took me to my primary care physician. After that, they checked my urine for ketones. I had no clue what ketones meant at that time. The doctor told her that she needed to take me to the ER immediately. So she drove me to the University of Michigan, unfortunately the University of Michigan. So she took me there. They already had a room ready for me when I got there. And as soon as I got there, they ended up giving me a shot. And that's kind of really how everything really, really unfolded from that moment on. And I remember after the nurse gave me a shot, which I hate shots. At that time, I hated shots. My mom ended up stepping out in the hallway with the doctor, and the doctor ended up telling my mother that I had type 1 diabetes. So when she came into the room, I didn't know anything about it, and I just seen my mom bawling, crying, and I didn't know what to do. So I just hopped off the bed. I just gave her a big hug, and I said, "Mom, I'm gonna be okay." I said, "We're gonna be okay." And I made a promise to her, and I'm a man of my word. So I'm living true to that, and every day, it is tough. I'll be lying if I said dealing with this disease isn't tough, but it could always be worse than what it is.
I think one of the biggest distinctions for, at least when it comes to diagnosis, is when it happens. So for me, my personal background is I was diagnosed when I was 5. So I grew up with type 1 diabetes and all of the constraints that come with that. From a dietary standpoint, from never going anywhere without fast-acting glucose, all of those kind of prerequisite lifestyle things. But when this is happening to you at an older age, as you're about to go into college, when you've had habits and certain parts of your lifestyle have become kind of more solidified, how are you able to take that diagnosis information and then pretty much adjust your entire or a large portion of your life to fit the demands of this disease?
It's the best analogy I can give for you, Sam, and you could probably relate to this. It's kind of like you get that stretch play from a running back. That tackle doesn't quite get the edge, and you got to cut it back a lot sooner than you thought you were going to have to. It's just one of those things with the diabetes. I looked at it as if it was my ball, and I just took it and ran with it. I knew I was getting ready to go to college. Even though my mom, I love her to death, it was something that I had to kind of man up on my own because she wasn't going to be there with me. So with me knowing that I just took full responsibility, because at the end of the day, it wasn't going to be my mother giving me my shot. It wasn't going to be my mother checking my blood sugar. It wasn't going to be my mother waking me up to make sure I'm okay before class. These were things that I knew that I was going to have to do. So I just had to step up. And, at the end of the day, it wasn't going to affect her. I mean, it could if I wasn't taking care of myself. But ultimately, I was gonna be the one that was affected if I wasn't taking care of things. It wasn't gonna, if I didn't take care of it, I wasn't gonna be able to play football. I wasn't gonna be able to hang out with my friends. I wasn't gonna be able to do those things that I enjoy doing. So I always felt that long as I'm proactively doing the things necessary to take care of my diabetes, then I'll be fine. And I'm here with you, talking to you now, and nothing has changed from when I was first diagnosed to where I'm at now. It's still a heavy burden, but I know that I'm the one that's in control, and ultimately I have to take care of my diabetes.
Would you have handled the diagnosis news as well if you weren't an athlete, do you think?
I think so. I definitely think so, because I've always been the type of person, regardless of what it is, being told no, or you can't do this, or this and that, I've always been one to maybe kind of go against the grain a little bit. It's almost like I want you to say that I can't do something. So when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, it's like, oh, you can't play football. And it's like, why can't I? Oh, you can't eat that. Why can't I? You know what I mean? It's one of those things like why can't I? So, I mean, when you look at food, yeah, at the end of the day, we all need to eat certain things in moderation, but the fact that I have great devices to deliver me insulin, I have great devices to look at my blood sugar on a consistent basis throughout the course of the day without having to check if I don't need to, those things kind of play a huge role. But no, I don't think it would have changed anything. I think, I'm a very optimistic person, and very positive, and at the end of the day, I feel like I can conquer anything.
How was the support network you had at Michigan State? I know for me, the trainers and our coaches and even my teammates were some of the frontline, most important people in terms of managing my diabetes. And as much as they would, give me a hard time for giving myself an injection in the locker room and being like, oh, man, this guy's doing some steroids at halftime. But tell me what that support network is like, because I know in a diabetic's life, and really anyone with a chronic illness, there's so many different role players, from doctors to family to friends to teammates. How were you able to rely on those people to kind of help you out?
I would definitely start off with my suite mates from my dorm freshman year. One of them was like a brother to me, and I didn't have a roommate, so he spent a majority of his time in my room, like it was his room for whatever reason, but it's fine. My buddy William McElroy, my support system was really good, and I think I would say from a high school standpoint, when I was first diagnosed, my trainers were on top of everything as much as they could be. It was new to me, it was new to them, so there was a lot of precautions taken, but I would say at the collegiate level, I mean, we had great trainers. Jeff Monroe, Sally Nogo, Lou, like those ladies and gentlemen. And even the our GAs, like they were on top of it. If there was an issue or I was having an issue, I could let them know, and we could get it taken care of. I do remember one time, I think I probably had at the time I didn't know I was low, but when I look back on it now, I realized I was, and I was very irritated during a winter morning workout at like 4:30 in the morning, and I literally just depleted myself of all the gas I literally had in my body, and I just couldn't go anymore. I just drank a whole bottle of Gatorade, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The winter workouts are pretty intense. I can honestly say for us they were. But, it's just one of those things, like, I didn't feel defeated because I knew I was giving it my all at the end of the day. But, like, the support system was amazing, from my friends to my teammates to my trainers, to my family back at home. My mom, she checks on me almost every other day, if not every day, you know. So the support has never been a lack of support. And also, you know, going to see the endocrinologist at Sparrow, which is in East Lansing, and then also University of Michigan. When I used to come back home, I would see the endocrinologist there. So, you know, it's always the support system has always been very, very, very good.
Do you think, and I know this is speaking from, you know, my personal experience, but do you think there is a process of having to try to open up and to let those people help you? I think for me, when I came in as a freshman, I was like, you know, this is something that I take care of on my own. Like, you guys don't understand it. You know, if I'm high or low during a game, I know how to fix it. Just let me handle it. And then, you know, going into my senior year, I remember our first game after we were in St. Louis. After the game, we were walking to the bus, and I almost passed out. And it really took me, you know, a quarter of the way into my senior year, I think, to fully open up and say, all right, I need to leverage this network of people. They know what they're doing. They want to help me. But I think for whatever reason, maybe it's, you know, we grow up and we feel like we have to be independent and in control of the entire process of our diabetes treatment, that we kind of push these people out without meaning to do so. So what did you feel like you kind of went through that process?
I would definitely say in the very beginning, when I was first diagnosed in high school, I kind of was, I don't want to use the word guarded, but I kind of, like you said, I kind of just felt like it was just me that needed to deal with it, and not anybody else, you know. And I think that's just maybe how we're raised. It could be a toughness thing, or it could be like, I got this, or, you know, confident with it. But one thing I will say, a lot of my friends used to ask me, like, oh, what's this for? What's that for? Like, I'm taking a shot, or I'm drawing up the insulin from the vial, or I'm checking my blood sugar, or I'm popping some gummies for a snack to bring my blood sugar up. But what I realized is they weren't asking because they were trying to be nosy. They were asking because they cared and they wanted to help. So as the 17-year-old Brandon and the Brandon now, obviously there's a big difference. And I think from me making that transition from high school to college, I realized, like, I'm not trying to hide anything, but at the end of the day, the people that are closest to me, they need to know what's going on just in case something was to happen, you know. So early stages, yes, I would say when I was first diagnosed, it was kind of like I kind of wanted to just deal with it on my own. But I realized my network of people that were asking what was what, they just genuinely cared and wanted to make sure that I was okay.
So switching gears a little bit, sports enables us and empowers us with kind of a unique platform to reach out to people and to try to be an inspiration to, you know, all people, especially those with type 1 diabetes like us. We were talking a little bit before the show about a connection you had with a fellow type 1 diabetic. Tell us a little bit about that story and what that looked like.
Definitely. Nate Bob, God bless his family and him, man. His family, and they're just awesome. His mom is Jackie Bob. Nate Bob, he just graduated from Michigan State University with a nursing degree. He ended up writing me a letter, I believe my sophomore year at Michigan State, and it actually made me realize what type of platform that I was on to actually speak about my diabetes. And to be honest, if he never reached out to me, I can't say that you would be listening to this now, for the simple fact he got me involved with JDRF, and it's probably been one of the best things that I think I've ever been able to do and be a part of. And the letter, I mean, it just speaks for itself. The fact that he was 13 at the time, he was a type 1 diabetic, he had never missed a game at Spartan Stadium. Like, he's a diehard fan, and, you know, he wrote something in the letter very specific that I had saved a touchdown on kickoff, and, you know, and it's like that whole letter is just stuck in my head. And at the bottom it said, please beat Ohio State next week. And I'm just like, I mean, this is coming from a 13-year-old kid that has diabetes, and you understand everything. He's just younger than you, but like, he gets it, he understands. And, you know, for him to reach out and have the courage to write me the letter, I think that shows a lot about him as a person. But after I got the chance to meet him, and he had came to a Michigan State high school camp, summer camp, and man, I just got to see him excel, and I'm like, wow, like he has the same thing I have, and he's out there like doing this thing. And I remember I had just got out of class, and I wanted to hurry up and get over there before lunch, before they broke for lunch. And soon as I literally walked to our outside facility, he had just got a pick and took it to the crib. And I was just like, this is crazy. He had his insulin pump on and everything. And it was just an amazing feeling to see people doing the same thing that you do, and they're so passionate about it, you know? So like he definitely holds a special part in my heart. His family holds a special part in my heart. That was like my family. That was like my home away from home. They always took care of me, made sure I was good. I had everything. If I ever needed any diabetic supplies, or if I ever needed help with anything, like they were always there. Like they're the true definition of a true family. True family.
That's awesome. I think there's so much, power, juice, energy, whatever you want to call it, in the diabetic community, and it's only when you make these connections and these links and these relationships that you can kind of like unleash some of that power. I got to give a shout out to I had a similar relationship with a kid, Jack Hartman. He's a young man from Pennsylvania who his family reached out to me after my sophomore year, and we started corresponding, and eventually he was able to come down to one of our games against one of our big rivals. And it's funny, these younger people with T1D, they reach out to you, and they talk about how you're such an inspiration. But I think you can probably attest to this too, I think we end up getting so much more out of those connections and those correspondence with those younger people, because they're doing these big things, but at such a younger age.
I agree.
And it's just such an inspiration to see these young people just absolutely thriving.
It just ultimately makes you feel. It makes you feel good deep down, because it's like I've been able to accomplish whatever I wanted to accomplish, but then you see younger people accomplishing the same thing at such a high level as well, and you understand where their head is. Like, I can't be stopped, and you love seeing that.
Yeah, no, it's I think that's one of the more special parts about being a type 1 diabetic and being part of this community. Obviously, there's so much toughness and challenges that come with this disease, but at the same time, you're part of a really unique, tight-knit community. Let's switch gears again. You were on American Ninja Warrior. You are a ninja. In addition to your football exploits, and Brandon, as we touched on, made it to the CFL, but we'll dive into that a little bit later. I want to hear about your ninja days.
So the ninja days, I think you're not human if you don't like American Ninja Warrior, because if you don't, I really don't know what to say to you. But I think growing up watching American Ninja Warrior and seeing where it's at now, it's like night and day, literally. And when they used to run the course, they used to run through the day, and now they start at dusk and run till dawn. It was a cool, unique experience. If you can ever get the opportunity to either submit a tape and get on the show, I highly suggest you do it. I believe they're doing like teen Ninja Warriors now, so you can be under 18, which is kind of cool, because I think it gives the teenagers a platform to actually go out there and compete and have some fun like the adults. But having an opportunity to run at Monument Circle in Indianapolis was absolutely amazing. It was about 150 participants out there. Out of the 150, I would probably say I was probably one of the heaviest ones that was out there, along with a couple other big fellas, but that was pretty much it. So, like, being able to kind of showcase athleticism, ability, strength, quickness, all that type of stuff, I think to get the opportunity from American Ninja Warrior was very, very huge, and I'm very thankful for having the opportunity to do that. But I think my main reason for doing it is I wanted to show people that no matter what size you are, no matter what color you are, no matter what disease you have, no matter what obstacles you face, we all face different obstacles in life. And obviously anybody that seen the course or knows about American Ninja Warrior, none of the obstacles are the same, and they change them every year, and they change them every course. And that's kind of like having diabetes. Nothing is ever the same. One day my blood sugar could be completely perfect. The next day it could be low. The next day it could be high, or it could be high for a week. It could be low for a week. So it's just about facing adversity and different obstacles and different challenges. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it, and I kind of would like to do it again, or maybe put a T1D team together and get out there and hit the course.
Yeah. No, I was doing some research before the show, and I'm looking up Brandon Denson, American Ninja Warrior, and there's this picture of you on the starting mat, and you've got like, was it a Dexcom and an Omnipod?
Yeah, so I had a Dexcom G5, and then I had my insulin pump on.
So you're looking like part bionic as you're ready to go. Was it what was the feedback like from some of the other competitors? Were they asking about, hey, what are those? Like, are those like giving you some special powers or something like that? What was those conversations like?
A lot of them, obviously, I didn't take my shirt off until I actually was about to step up onto the stage to actually run the course. But after, a lot of people didn't know I was a diabetic. So, it's one of those things, you don't know. Like, if you just walked up to me and you didn't know anything about me, you wouldn't know that I had diabetes. And it's not like I'm trying to hide it or anything like that. But my main reason for taking off my shirt was to show people, one, that have diabetes, they know, but then parents and kids, like, you can do whatever it is that you want to do in life. No setbacks, no barriers, nothing. And, if you feel like you can do something, then at the end of the day, you owe it to yourself to try it. You know what I mean? I think sometimes we get so guarded and sell ourselves short because we think that we can't do this or we don't know how to do this. I think that the best way to figure out how to do something or to see if you know how to do it or don't know how to do it is just to do it, And I think that, with that, you can do anything.
So continuing on that trend of doing anything, what was the process like for you as you were coming to the end of your college playing days and thinking about trying to pursue football at the next level?
A goal of mine was really to just play collegiate football. But I think after my first time actually playing in a game, running down on kickoff and making a tackle, in my head I said, this is easy. I said, like, I think I want to try to do something with this. And I remember like it was yesterday, running down on kickoff. We were playing Illinois at Michigan State in Spartan Stadium, and I made a solo tackle. One thing about kickoff, for me, my head is on a swivel and I'm zooming down. I'm zooming down. I'm trying to be the first one down every single time, and it's just it was pretty cool to be just thrown in there and getting after it. But I think after I made that first tackle, I was like, I think I want to try to pursue this and go to the next level. I never really had dreams on being drafted. Even after playing at Michigan State, I didn't think that I was going to get drafted, but I knew at the very least that I would probably get a shot, maybe with an NFL team as a free agent, or get brought into rookie minicamp and things like that. And a little adversity kicked in. I led our team in special teams tackles my junior and senior year. I was a third leading tackler on our team my senior year. And I didn't get a shot. I didn't get a shot to try out for any teams, any NFL teams. I kind of took that as I have to do something to bounce back. I knew I was a walk-on at Michigan State, so I knew things weren't going to be given to me, but all I needed was a chance and an opportunity, just like I had at Michigan State, to showcase my talent, my ability, and my skills. And I didn't get the call. My agent didn't get a call for me to go on the mini camp or any rookie mini camps or any workouts or anything like that. But I stayed persistent in training. I never stopped training. And then I ended up coming back home, and I trained with one of my mentors, Jeffrey Johnson. He's like a father figure to me. His family, Rosaria Johnson, his boys, Jace D'Angelo and Julian, like those are like my little brothers. And with open arms, we got back in the lab and we got after it. And shortly after that, probably I would say 6 to 8 months later, I had a different agent, and I had to work out with a Canadian football team, and I worked out for them on a Friday. They had a contract for me ready for me that Monday, and I kind of just, was once again, I just took the ball and ran with it. It was an opportunity for me to kind of get experience, get exposure, and then also learn about the professional realm, as it's very different from the collegiate realm of football.
Yeah. No, I wanted to ask you too about, we have a shared experience in trying to prep for a pro day. And I remember very vividly, as this was only, 3 or 4 months ago for me, the process of everything has to be so incredibly dialed in over those 2 to 3 months leading up. So your diet, your sleep, you're not, drinking anything that's going to put your performance at risk. Everything you're even thinking about, your mentality has to be so positive. And then, as type 1 diabetics, we have this additional dimension of we need to be so on top of our blood sugar because you got scouts looking at you. You're about to do your vert, your bench, your 40. If you're not at the ideal level, that's going to impact your performance, which is going to reflect your ability in those scouts' eyes. So talk about, like, as you were prepping, you talked about getting back in the lab and, your prep for going to the CFL workout, but talk about when you were trying to dial in that performance and how you were able to manage your diabetes during that time.
I think, like you said, Sam, it's such a crucial time. You don't have any time for anything other than what you're chasing after, and that's trying to make it to the next level. So your eating is probably the cleanest it's ever been. Your sleep, you're probably focused on getting a true 8 hours or plus more of sleep. Breakfast, it consists of the same thing every day. The consistency of everything is the same because you want that end goal result, whether it's the 40 or you trying to get one more on the bench or you trying to squeak by a perfect shuttle or a short shuttle or a long shuttle, or you trying to bust a half inch more on your vertical. Like, all these things matter. I mean, down from every piece of food that you put in your mouth to everything that you drink, to staying on top of your stretching, to making sure you're getting the proper treatments if needed. Like, you have to. Your body is a machine essentially, and it has to be fine tuned at perfect time to peak in front of these individuals. Whether, like I said, whether it's you running a fast 40, maybe they know you can bench 30, but they want to see you in a mid 4.55. You know what I mean? All these things, they matter. And not to discredit or take anything from anybody else. Sometimes I think there's a lot more overweighing that you have to have this, because I think the measurables sometimes can be a little ridiculous, like in regards to what you can do in a test versus what you actually do on the field. But, at the end of the day, we don't have the final say-so in those decisions. So it's kind of like we got to show up and show out, and, I always looked at it. I don't mind being an underdog. I feel like I've been an underdog a majority of my life, and it's fine. I think it keeps me hungry, and it keeps me humble, and it keeps me focused, So you really, I know for me, I had made some huge changes for those 3 months that I was training. I trained out in Chicago at EFT with Elias Cares. Great dude, great facility. He trains collegiate athletes, professional athletes, high school athletes. He also has tutoring set up for his high school athletes. Just an amazing place to train at. But at the end of the day, things didn't work out for whatever reason. It had nothing to do with how I was trained or anything like that. It's just, at the end of the day, maybe I didn't display the right performance for them, but, I knew I was still good enough to play at the next level given the opportunity.
I still remember it was spinach, brown rice, black beans, ground turkey, and mixed veggies for lunch and dinner out of this little plastic tray for 3 months, and I still to this day cannot eat that stuff.
I will say, one for it.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say my since I was training in Chicago, my weakness was Garrett's popcorn and Giordano's pizza.
Okay.
And if you haven't had Chicago style pizza, Giordano's is I could probably only eat one piece out of that pizza because that pizza was amazing.
Did you like pig out after the pro day? Just be like, I need like one day.
I went crazy.
Yeah.
I went crazy. You know it. You know it.
I've been there too. So back to the CFL. So you got that, came in, performed well in the workout, signed the contract, and then you were off and running. Tell me about playing in the CFL.
CFL is amazing. A lot of people ask me like, oh, why'd you play in the CFL and not the NFL? Well, the NFL didn't really give me that many chances. I had the opportunity to play in Carolina, but it was very short. It was at the same time Luke Kuechly was drafted, so it probably wasn't the best situation for me to be there. Beeson was still there. Anderson was there. So they were pretty stacked at linebacker. But, I took the opportunity after leaving the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I asked to be released, and they ended up granting it. I don't know, if it was the best decision, but at the end of the day, I had an opportunity to play up, and, that was something that I kind of set my sights on after I made that first tackle versus Illinois at Michigan State. I said, I owe it to myself, because if I don't take the opportunity, I don't know what will come from it. If I don't take it, I won't know. If I take it, at least I tried, But playing in the CFL, to me personally, I like it better than the American style football, as they say, down south. Being in Canada, down south, or you from down south. But the game it's really, the fans are into it. It's 12 people on the field, so you got one extra guy. The field is 10 yards longer. The end zones are 20 yards, and the field is about 15 yards wider. So, and it's 3 downs. So you have to be prepared for a lot of running, and if you're a defensive guy, oh boy, just be ready to go. That's all I can say, because the field is so much bigger. It's just like a huge playground for the offense. But it's so fun. The game is so different. It's football, but it's so fast paced and just so much fun. I mean, I wish some of the NFL guys had an opportunity to actually play it. I do know a ton of guys that maybe were released or cut from NFL teams, and they went to the CFL. They like it as well. It's not as many teams. There are 9 teams, and it's not as many as the NFL, which has 32. And then obviously it's a multi-million-dollar industry, not a multi-billion-dollar industry like the NFL. But it's a fun way to do something that you love and get paid for ultimately, and just go out there and have fun each and every day.
How were your coaches compared to, your college days in terms of responding to your diabetes? Were they completely understanding? Because now you're at the professional level. It is a business at the end of the day. How were they in terms of assessing, where you were with your diabetes?
I would say I had a tight-knit with the trainers, and I would tell this to anybody: if you have diabetes and you play sports at a high level, you should have a strong relationship, obviously with all your coaches if you can, but especially your trainers, because I think those are going to be your caretakers to take care of you if things are not good or things are great. So I think having that relationship with your trainers and your coaches is very, very good. I never really dealt with any issues with my diabetes as it related to having to deal with like my coaches or anything like that. But they were always very understanding if I did need to do something, or, I remember, I think my rookie year in camp, I ended up having like a really high blood sugar. And, obviously when you have a high blood sugar, sometimes you tend to urinate a lot more. And then obviously with the hydration, being on top of hydration that we were in camp, so I was urinating a lot, and, I had to let them know, like, this is just something I'm going to be in and out, in and out of film, in and out, because, my blood sugar was high and I had to use the bathroom a lot. But, other than that, I never really had any issues. My coaches knew. At Michigan State, they knew. In the CFL, they knew. And with the Panthers, they knew as well. So, it was just, it's just always good to be on the up and up, because anything could happen. And it's just one of those things. I want to be as honest as I can. So if something does happen to me, but, if I can't be honest about something I really have no control over, and I didn't ask to be diagnosed with this, and it's kind of like if they hold it against me, then that might not be the best place for me to be in the first place.
So we've talked a little bit, myself included, about instances where we've really struggled with diabetes. For me, I can think back to, growing up, I had a few times where I got so low I was, having seizures. But really, I think one of my, and I'll call it like an important failure for me, a learning experience, was this past season. I had never really had an issue playing football with diabetes until my senior year of college, where after the game, passed out, essentially walking to the bus. But at the same time, I think that was probably my most important failure, because it set up, in my mind, I just realized all of a sudden I need to be more on top of this than I'm, currently am. I need to improve my system of management. Did you feel like you have or have had a failure that sets you up to improve your system of management going forward? Do you have like a most important failure that you can think back to?
It's funny that you mentioned something about your senior year, because looking back on it, for us under Mark D'Antonio, the era of Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State, we have to take a half gasser test to report to camp. And my first 2 years, it was completely fine. My senior year, I really couldn't tell you what happened, but I took the test and I didn't pass it. And once we get to about 12 half gassers, we get an extra second to complete them. I made it to 12, and I believe I missed my time on 13 and 14. I made 15, 16, missed 17, 18, and made 19 and 20. And for me, I had never been in a situation to where I didn't pass the test. So I felt like a failure. One, I was a senior and I failed the test. But two, it was one of those things like what is going on? Like, this is huge. Like, if I don't pass my test, I don't get to practice. I'm a starter. I'm a senior. So I felt like a failure on the inside. But at the end of the day, I had to realize, like, I'm dealing with something nobody else on this field is dealing with. And I had to take that into consideration. But I am my toughest critic, and I want the best for myself, and I always want to achieve whatever goals I set out for. The rest of that day, my blood sugar was just ridiculously high, and I don't know if it was because the added stress that I didn't make the test, or that everything was just all off, or what. But I remember our tight ends coach at the time, Coach Mark Staten. Great guy, absolute great guy. I had this thing for SpongeBob. I like SpongeBob a lot. So the next day, this guy drops this big SpongeBob off in my locker with a card in it, from the little Michigan State card. And I can't remember verbatim what it said, but it said something similar to Denson, keep your head up, you're doing great. And like I said, he knew I liked SpongeBob. I had a everybody knew I liked SpongeBob. I used to keep a SpongeBob sleeping bag in my locker with a pillow and the SpongeBob pillowcase. So everybody on my team knew I liked SpongeBob. But the fact that he went out his way to do that, it made me feel good about myself and realize, like, I can't be so hard on myself for not making the 20 half gassers. Like, I knew that I gave it my absolute all, and the fact that another coach from the other side of the ball is kind of saying, like, hey, man, you can't be so tough on yourself. Like, you're doing a hell of a job. You know what I mean? So, like, that made me realize, like, you know what? It's all good. I'll come back and whatever. If they make me do the all 20 again tomorrow in the morning, then I'll do all 20. Came back the next morning. Mike Trussell was my position coach, and in their staff meeting, they made they made an agreement that I only had to make up 6 of them the next morning, which was fine because I knocked those puppies out. I was ready to go. I just wanted to get in camp.
Just to clarify, gasser is across the field, back, and then across one more time.
Yeah, but we just did the half gasser, so down.
Okay,
just
down and back.
Yeah, down and back.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's no joke. So if you ever want to try to do 20 half gassers timed, and go ahead and make the first set in 14 seconds, and then do the second half, the other 8, do those in 15 seconds, and let me know.
The Brandon Denson challenge, and then post at Game Plan T1D, and we'll check it out. I think we touched on an important topic of being our own harshest critics. And I think I can definitely relate to that in multiple facets of my life. But I want to talk about, a kind of revelation that I had, a kind of moment of clarity that really I think started to set in as I started Game Plan T1D, and that is kind of reframing my diagnosis of type 1 diabetes as a massive blessing in disguise. I think, there are so many hard parts about the disease, but at least growing up with type 1 diabetes really set me on a path of good health where I had to be so accountable and dialed in when it came to, what I'm putting in my body in terms of fuel, tracking my blood sugar, making sure that I exercise, making sure that I have a positive mental state. All of those things have such a more important role in your life as a type 1 diabetic. Do you feel like you've kind of experienced that, and can you relate to that idea of type 1 diabetes kind of actually being a blessing in disguise?
I tell a lot of the kids that I talk to, it truly is a blessing in disguise, because you don't really realize what you're capable of or who you're capable of helping, or being able to potentially turn their life around or help them in certain situations, because dealing with this disease can be very overwhelming. Let's just be honest, we don't get a break from it. Kids that are growing up with it, they don't get a break from it. Their parents don't get a break from it. I could only imagine if I had a kid and they had diabetes, like, even though I have it, I still will be worried crazy out of my mind, because it's always that what if, or do you have this, or are you sure you have this, or, it's so, when you really think about it, it's kind of scary. It is, but at the end of the day, kids still have to be kids and live a full, healthy, fun, successful life. But I do carry it as a blessing in disguise, just because you have some people that handle it very well. You have some people that handle it okay, and you have some people that are kind of terrible at handling it. But I think the fact that other individuals that don't do as well with it can talk to other people that have had tremendous success with it, I think it essentially helps them out when they do talk to those individuals, because they realize, like, wow, like, he or she's going through the same thing that I go through every day, and they've been able to achieve this amount of success. So it's like, well, you know what? I can do that too. So it's cool, because you're able to give inspiration and give hope and give drive to where it may not be there, but the fact that you can talk to somebody and instill that in them, and they're able to see that, I think it goes a long way. Like, the feeling that you get from that, it can't be explained.
So on that topic, if there is a type 1 diabetic listening to this who's really struggling, really down in the dumps, maybe they just got diagnosed, what would be your message to them? We talked a little bit about the no barriers being kind of your big billboard message, but maybe this could be something a little bit more specific to that person that's really struggling right now.
I will honestly say, no matter what in life, we're going to have ups and downs, we're going to have challenges, we're going to go through adversity, but the thing is, you can hang your head and deal with it, or you can hold your head high and deal with it. The fact of the matter is, you have to hold yourself accountable and be proactive about what's going on, versus saying, I have this disease, it sucks, I can't do anything with it. You have to kind of reverse that and say, I have this disease, I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to do whatever it takes so I can be successful, and my family can be successful, and my friends around me can be successful. I honestly feel there's no task too small or too big that type 1 diabetics can't deal with or handle.
I think for me, my response to that would just be, it's a choice. Like you said, you have a choice. We all have choices in our lives, but like you said, you can either kind of face that challenge head on, or choose to be passive and kind of let it take your life in different directions and not be in control. But the biggest thing I would say is just lean on that community, lean on your friends who want to help you, lean on your family, lean on your endocrinologist, your nutritionist, those people that are there in a position to help you. And if you can make that choice to live in a positive state of mind, this, like we just touched on, can be a blessing in disguise, and it can be a gratifying character-building challenge that makes you and me the strong people that we are today, and makes people with type 1 diabetes that badasses.
Agreed.
It's a big challenge, but I'll tell you what, athletes, diabetics, we're stronger because of that challenge.
For sure.
Sweet. All right, Brandon, thank you so much for being on the show, man. First episode in the books.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
No problem. JDRF is one of the leading fundraisers for type 1 diabetes and research. And the research covers anything from finding a cure to fundraising dollars to have pumps like the 670G or CGMs as it relates to Dexcom, G6, G5, G4s. They're a huge player in these departments, and also in creating, getting the SDP sign, which is a special diabetes program that just got renewed this year. Thank you to everybody in DC that was a part of that. And if you ever need any help or resources, we're always here for you in that department. You can always visit type1nation.org. We have plenty of resources that can be downloaded on there. And then for newly diagnosed patients, we also have a bag of hope, which is offered from anybody from the infant ages to the age of 15. And then we have T1D care kits from the ages of 16 and up for adults and teenagers that are diagnosed. So it's just JDRF has been near and dear to my heart ever since Nate Bob kind of got me involved in it at Michigan State. And whether I work for JDRF or I don't work for JDRF, I always have a special place in my heart, because it's always given me a platform to speak about diabetes and to help others that are living with this disease and caregivers as well.
Definitely some important resources, and again, that goes back to the idea of we can improve our system of care and the stability of our blood sugar by leaning on these communities and leaning on these resources. And obviously, JDRF, I've done the walk ever since I was a little kid. It's a really important program. They're doing great work over there.
So we have 3 walks that we'll be having for JDRF 2018. The first one will be Saturday, September 29th. It's going to be in Boston, Massachusetts at the DCR Hatchell. Then we'll have another walk Sunday, September 30th, 2018 in Lancaster, Massachusetts at the Bolton Fairgrounds. And we'll have one more JDRF 1 walk Sunday, October 14th, 2018 in East Greenwich, Rhode Island at Rocky Hill School. I'm Brandon A. Denson. I have type 1 diabetes, and I have a game plan.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Game Plan T1D podcast. For related content, please visit www.gameplant1d.com or follow us on social media at Game Plan T1D. Find your game plan.